Good morning, and we're in chapter 20 of Exodus. And if anybody knows anything about their scriptures, they know that chapter 20 is all about the Ten Commandments. And what it, it's the Ten Commandments. And we see the Ten Commandments throughout the scriptures, and there's a lot in here today because, it's the Ten Commandments, and how many lessons have been taught on the Ten Commandments. So there can be a lot, and we'll have quite a few things to look in the side notes. But we'll get into it. We'll read everything. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. One thing I want to point out here is Moses and Aaron have gone up into the mountain and come back down, and then there's the Ten Commandments. It doesn't mention anything about the tablets at this point. In fact, it says that God spake all these words. Now, just in case you think we got it wrong or something, they have been written down on tablets, or it is in the scriptures, but at this point, he's telling the people what needs to be done so that they can be written on. But at this point, he's letting the people know. He's preparing the people for what is to come. And we're just going to go into the right-hand side here before we start into the Ten Commandments. What is the significance of the Ten Commandments? While the Israelites were gathered at the base of Mount Sinai, they heard the voice of God proclaim the Ten Commandments to them from a cloud at the top of the mountain. The Ten Commandments are a foundational part of the gospel of Jesus Christ. They are taught and repeated throughout the scriptures. President Spencer W. Kimball taught that these commandments were known to Adam and his posterity before Moses received them. The Ten Commandments coincide with the Savior's two great commandments, to love God and to love others. Elder L. Tom Perry taught that the first four commandments have to do with our attitude toward God. The remaining six are our attitude toward our fellow men. Reverence for God was a basis for the Ten Commandments. Sometimes when you read these things, you just think, how much more can you even say? That is, in a nutshell, the reason why we have these. And there's going to be a few other quotes like that I've got. In fact, I'm going to come down here. The first one, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Remember, the first four is about our attitude toward God. And I've put in the notes here several things, actually, if you can see. And we've got 2 Nephi. He commandeth that there shall be no priestcrafts, for behold, priestcrafts are that men preach and set themselves up for a light unto the world, that they may gain and get gain and praise of the world, but they seek not the welfare of Zion. And I think that's important in this context, because we often think of priestcrafts as somebody that's getting paid to preach, but in here it's actually saying that they may get gain and praise of the world. If you ever do anything that makes you want to get praise of the world or anything like that, whether you're a preacher or somebody else, and using God as that, it's priestcrafts. And then this is from the come follow me, this section here, the chapter, the great commandment, love the Lord. The great test, I love the way he does this, and he repeats it twice in his talk in this chapter. The great test of life is obedience to God. Here we go. Here's all of them together. The great test of life is obedience to God. The great task of life is to learn the will of the Lord and then do it. The great commandment of life is thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. I love the fact that he ties them all together, the test, the task, and the commandment of life. That is the things that we can look at and use in our own lives. Be obedient to God, learn his will and do it, and then love him. I just love that way. Then from the come follow me, there's things that when we're reading these 10 commandments to think. First of all, think of what the commandment is, and then think, other words, what the Lord is asking me to do. And then finally, the blessings that come from living this commandment. As we go through, you can think of those blessings and what it is that you can do to live those. I just wanted to point those out now as we go through. And then there's a second section before we get into it again. I think I got that one. Is there another part? Yeah. This part has to do with downright chokes. Again, we're going from Ezra Taft Benson to downright chokes, another prophet. At this time, he is president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. For none of these examples seem to apply to any of us. We can probably suggest that others that do. The principle is more important than the individual examples. The principle is not whether we have other priorities. The question posed by the second commandment is, what is our ultimate priority? Are we serving priorities, other gods, ahead of the God that we profess to worship? Have we forgotten to follow the Savior who taught that if we love him, we will keep his commandments? If so, our priorities have been turned upside down by the spiritual apathy and undisciplined appetites so common in our day. I think that is so relevant today as much as it was over 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago. And then this, why does the Lord refer to himself as a jealous God? Well, speaking about the second commandment, which forbids the worship of idols, President Dallin H. Oaks taught, more than merely forbidding physical idols, this states that a fundamental priority for all time. Jehovah explains, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, showing mercy unto them that love me and keep my commandments. The meaning of jealous is revealing. Its Hebrew origin means possessing sensitive and deep feelings. Thus we offend God when we serve other gods, when we have other first priorities. I think there's a lot in there to unpack as well, and think about what is our priorities, what is our goals, and what was Israel's goal at this time. What was their priorities? Sometimes it was just to eat, sometimes. And we'll get into that more later. But remember, they're being told this from a cloud on Sinai, hearing the voice of the Lord speak it. So let's get into it. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image or likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow thyself down, nor serve them, for I, the Lord, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generations. That sounds a bit harsh, a little bit, except what he's saying is, if you make a decision today, it will affect your family. So you need to think what you're doing. Are you worshiping God? Are you putting God first? Are you putting him second? Are you thinking of other things? And how's it going to affect your children? I think that's how I read it. And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Again, I think as you put that with the top one here, you see that he does show mercy and he's ready to pull people in when they love him. So, in other words, thou shalt love the Lord thy God. And thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, and keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, and do all thy work. But the seventh day, the Lord God of the Lord thy God, in it thou shalt not do any work, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor the maidservant, nor the cattle, nor stranger within thy gates. And they're up in the right-hand corner. I've not forgotten the thing, but I just wanted to read down to that. What does it mean to take the Lord's name in vain? For the ancient Israelites, taking the Lord's name in vain meant using God's name in trivial, disrespectful, or irreverent way, whether in conversation, making covenants, or swearing oaths. Speaking about this commandment in our day, Elder Dale G. Renlund taught, at baptism and when we partake of the sacrament, we witness that we are willing to take on ourselves the name of Christ. In this context, let us be mindful of the Old Testament commandment, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. To our modern ears, this sounds like a prohibition against irreverently using the Lord's name. The commandment includes that, but its injunction is even more profound. The Hebrew word translated is as take means lift up or carry. As one would a banner that identifies oneself with an individual or group, the word translated as vain means empty or deceptive. The commandment not to take the Lord's name in vain can thus mean you should not identify yourself as a disciple of Christ unless you intend to represent him well. I love that, and anybody that's been in the church long enough knows that is how you should feel. It's not just about not using his name in vain, but that you keep it sacred. Even on the Sabbath day, think of where you are on the Sabbath day. See how that fits in For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it, made it sacred, is what that is. And I love in 12, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord giveth thee. On the honor part, if we look in the footnotes, it says respect or value. Not just, I guess a lot of times you hear honor and you think, well, it's got to be setting someone up on a pedestal or something like that. It's just a respect and a value of your father and mother. And then these ones go by really fast. Thou shalt kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor. These ones are just how we should act. And if we've got the first four down, these ones become a little bit easier to live anyway. I should say the first five down. And what is meant by the commandment not to kill? The Hebrew word translated as kill in the King James Version is better understood as murder. To murder means to intentionally and unjustly end another person's life. There are some situations in which one might kill another person that do not constitute murder, for example, in self-defense or during military action in the line of duty. It's important that we understand. Also, thou shalt not kill. Some people take it to the extreme that if they don't eat any type of meat because they're killing something, even though how far can you take it? Can you take it that a tree, if you chop a tree down, are you killing that tree or whatever, you know? So I'm not going to go any deeper into that, but it's something to think about. And the people saw the thunderings and lightnings and the noise and the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. You can understand why. What's significant about the Israelites' unwillingness to have God speak to them directly? And I thought about this as well. Well, this is going on. I just wanted to pull it up here. The Israelites were afraid that when they saw the lightning and the smoke upon Mount Sinai and heard the thunder as the Lord's voice declared the Ten Commandments, they requested that Moses converse with Jehovah instead of having Jehovah continue to speak with them directly. Although Moses admonished them to fear not, the Israelites stood afar off. Well, Moses ascended Mount Sinai to speak with the Lord. 3 days earlier, the Lord had commanded Moses to sanctify the people so they could be prepared for when the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Doctrine and Covenants 84 explains that Moses had sought to sanctify the people so they could be prepared to behold the face of God. Although the Israelites heard the Ten Commandments, it appears that the Lord had intended them to experience something more significant. However, the Israelites hardened their hearts and could not endure the presence, God's presence. Because of the hardness of heart demonstrated by the Israelites during this experience, their worship of the golden calf shortly thereafter, the Lord withheld his higher law from them. Joseph Smith taught, when God offers a blessing or knowledge to man and he refuses to receive it, he will be damned. The Israelites prayed to God prayed that God would speak to Moses and not to them, in consequence of which he cursed them with a carnal law. I think in our own life, do we have times when we, where are we? Oh, it's not, when we limit ourselves because we will not live those laws that the Lord wants us to, and we don't prepare ourselves to come before the Lord. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, for God is come to prove you. And that, instead of that, you might say, because respect for him will always be present with you, you will not sin. And I love this. Listen to what he says. But that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. In other words, if you respect him, and anybody that's been in the church a while, automatically when you think fear God, you think love and respect, not the fear and trembling that a lot of people put to God. They use fear also to describe what you should feel when you're sinning. Not in this context, it means love and respect for God. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, thus shalt thou say to the children of Israel, ye have seen that I have taught with you from heaven, and ye shall not make with me. I mean, don't put me next to these gods of silver, neither shalt thou make gods of gold. That's not the point. You should be looking towards what I'm doing. See, I can't be held into these little vessels. I am my own person. Sorry. Where did we go? Sorry. An altar of earth shalt thou make unto me, and shall sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thy oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it hewn of stone. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up the steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be discovered. Basically, it says that build a ramp instead thereon. I think one thing with this is saying not to build or to use hewn the stone or carve it. He's trying to teach him, I don't need you to make something man-made. I need you to worship me, not things of your hands. Well, there's a lot in here, and you can have more as you study it. But those are the 10 Commandments, and we'll keep coming back to them. And I hope you've learned something, and we're going to see what happens now that they've heard the voice of the Lord and got these commandments. And tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow.